Hey, welcome back, my friend. My name is Danny Dumas, and this is the Earn Your Title podcast. So I've got a question. What does a toothache, a smart monitor, have to do with me being stressed out? Well, let me tell you. About 3 weeks ago, I developed a toothache in one of my back molars, and it wasn't in my tooth. It was in my jaw. Very painful. And when looking back at my tooth, I noticed that I knew I had a crown there. I knew I had a root canal, so the tooth shouldn't hurt, right? Because there's no nerves there. And the white part, like the porcelain part, and I apologize to any dentist listening, it's probably not actually porcelain, but the white part was starting to chip away. It was black, like metal underneath. It's very painful, so I went in and I went to the dentist, and they said, it looks like you've possibly hurt one of the ligaments in your teeth, which I didn't know your teeth had ligaments, but they do. They said, are you under a lot of stress? I said, no, not really. And it was actually a different dentist. It's not the normal dentist I see. She was out. He's like, well, do you have a stressful job? And I don't know how to answer that question, or I didn't know how to answer that question, because I don't feel like my job is stressful, which if you've listened to this podcast anytime, you know that I'm a fireman. And historically, that is a stressful job. And anytime someone's asked me, is that a really stressful job? I usually say yes, because I don't want to sound stupid. But I really never believed. I'm like, no, I don't feel like I get stressed out at work. But he asked, he's like, are you any more stressed? I'm like, well, my job is stressful. He's like, you're grinding your teeth. I thought, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So, I ordered a bite guard and all that. And I was actually in a lot of pain for several days. I got put on a steroid and an antibiotic, and slowly his pain started going away. And it made me do some self-reflection. And to answer the question is, do I have a stressful job, and am I stressed out? And what I realized, and it was really like an epiphany. I'm like, oh, I've been using the wrong words. And so I think a lot of guys maybe will fall into this category where you are not worried and you don't have anxiety in your day-to-day life. And therefore you say, I'm not experiencing stress. But as I did some research and I went into, reading about grinding your teeth and what are some of the ways you can get rid of that and stop it, I realized that in my life, I am experiencing stress, but I'm not experiencing anxiety or worry. So let me explain what the difference is. So stress is a group of chemicals that get released when you get put into your sympathetic system. And you have two systems, fight or flight. You have fight and flight, and then you have like rest and relax. Those are the two different systems. And when you were walking in the woods and you hear a noise, and it could be a grizzly bear, your body says, hey, bro, we got to go. We got to get out of here. We're going to fight, or we're going to flee. I'm going to start sweating. My pupils are going to dilate. I'm going to give you some energy through adrenaline and cortisol and these things, and we're going to get out of here. That is stress. That is the sympathetic system. And it's good. It's designed to save our lives and to get us out of bad situations. Then we have the parasympathetic system. So you run away and you realize, hey, I've gotten far enough from the grizzly that he can't get me, and you relax and you go, man, now I'm hungry. You see a pretty girl. You decide to get married. She's your wife. All that stuff is parasympathetic. And I realized it would be dumb for me to say that in my job, I'm not in a sympathetic system where, like the last 6 medical calls that I've gone on, I don't go on a lot of medical calls. I went on, some guy shot in his femoral artery. He bled to death. Then I went on a CPR of a guy. And then I went on a shooting where a guy shot himself in the head. And then I went on another CPR. Then I went on a lady who couldn't breathe. Her pulse ox was like 70. We put her on a thing called a CPAP, which is kind of like what you do when you snore at night to force air into her lungs, and her pulse ox never really got up to 90. She was dying. And to think that that didn't cause me stress is ridiculous. And looking, like saying it out loud is kind of dumb. Like, yeah, of course, I was in a sympathetic system. I was experiencing cortisol. I was experiencing all these things. But I wasn't I've always considered stress, anxiety, and worry. So worry is thinking about things that could happen, that might happen, that possibly could happen. And worry can be a good thing. Like if you were, one of the pilgrims and you were looking at your stack of wood and winter's coming, you realize it's not big enough to warm your house through the winter. You have worries, therefore it spurs you to action. And that's worry that can be good. Well, most of the time in modern society, we don't need to worry, right? A lot of the things we can't control and the other things we can't control. So don't worry about them. Just control it. Do the right thing. So I didn't have worry. And then anxiety is kind of like the runaway stress where it physically takes over your body and you can have things like chest pain and it's like it's taking worry to the extreme where it physically causes things to happen where you can't sleep, upset stomach, weight loss or weight gain. And I don't have anxiety about work. Like I don't go to work thinking, I hope I don't die today. And I do realize, like I teach classes about, firemen calling maydays and they die, but I don't have anxiety about that. And I'm very thankful. That is just the way I was built. I'm not special. That's me, right? And I know like some people would definitely worry and have anxiety about that. And I think that's kind of like my superpower. I believe I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing is fighting fire, helping people. And I believe God gave me that non-worry, non-anxiety, but I still have stress. And so as I'm trying to figure out, which is, as I'm saying, it seems silly. Am I stressed out? I went to my Apple Watch. I have the first version of the Ultra Watch. I've had it in March. It'll be 3 years, and I wear it almost every single day for almost every minute of the day. Obviously, I take it off the charge. I'll go whole days without it, but I try to sleep with it on. I track my sleep, and there's a thing called heart rate variability, and I looked it up, and mine was 35. And I like to think that I'm a fairly healthy person, and when I compared that to what the internet said was healthy, it was actually pretty low. And you don't want a low heart rate variability. You want a high heart rate variability. So what is that? And I'm going to say HRV because heart rate variability is hard to say over and over. So your HRV, basically, if you look at the EKG and it's got these different squiggly lines, there's a really tall one. And it doesn't matter what that one is. And then you're going to create another one, another really tall one. The difference between the two really tall ones is your heart rate variability. And when you have a high heart rate variability, it means that actually changes a little bit. The distance between those two things changes, which is different than your heart rate. Your heart rate is how many times does your heart beat inside of 1 minute. This is how different is it from beat to beat to beat. And it's very like tiny microsecond differences. And the reason a higher heart rate variability is good is because you're bouncing between that parasympathetic system and the sympathetic system. One speeding you up, one slowing you down. You're back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And when you're in balance, your body's constantly doing that. Well, what happens is when you get stressed, you lean towards one system, sympathetic, and you get more consistent. It's 0.5 milliseconds, 0.5 milliseconds, 0.5 milliseconds instead of 0.5, 0.7, 0.8, 0.5, 0.7, 0.8. So you're slowing down that because you're into one system. Now, heart rate variability in and of itself is not an indicator of stress. If I take slow, deep breaths, I increase my heart rate variability. If I take fast, quick breaths, I slow it down because your breathing can put you into a sympathetic or a parasympathetic system. If you go get drunk and get wasted, that's going to slow your system because it puts you into one of those systems. So HRV in and of itself is not an indicator of stress, like day to day. But when you look at it as part of the big picture and you can see trends, that is where it's showing you, are you stressed out? And a lot of people will use it for working out. If you're experiencing a high stress response, which also could be to working out. When you deadlift and you do max deadlifts, that is putting stress. Because remember, stress are chemical factors, chemical things that happen to your body, and they change how you react. Now, when you're experiencing stress due to physical nature, meaning like you're running from the grizzly bear, your body performs an action after the stress. It runs away. And this is the important part. And this is what I'm actually trying to work on, because I don't want to grind my teeth, So how am I dealing with my stress now that I've come to the realization that I can have stress that is stored in my body like a battery? That stress is in my body. It's giving me the awesome chemicals that will allow me to go fight a grizzly bear. But currently, I don't have any grizzly bears in my life. So now it's coming out as grinding my teeth, maybe lack of sleep, maybe gaining belly fat, right? All these things. So what am I doing, and how can I help you kind of take you along the journey of getting rid of or managing my stress? So one, and I have been working on this and trying to get better and better, is sleep. Sleep is where you get rid of those chemicals. It allows your body time to process and just dump them, right? Just get them out of your system. Now, part of my having stress and not dealing with stress is that my job doesn't allow me to sleep. Like the other night, I worked and I think I got up at 3:30 in the morning, and I really didn't go back to sleep for the rest of the day. That's not good. Getting 4 hours of sleep wasn't good. But when I'm at home, I've been consistently trying to get 8 hours of sleep, but in the past 3 weeks, when I realized this is my issue, I've also I've gotten off my devices. I'm reading a book. I'm reading a book with lights as dimmed as low as possible, because I'm giving my body a chance to slow down and get ready to go to sleep, so that when I do go to sleep, I get that deep restorative sleep. I have a sauna. I've been trying to use my sauna more at night so that it extends the amount of time that I'm starting to slow down. I'm starting to go into the sympathetic, or the rest. I'm getting out of that stress response. When I'm going to bed, I'm trying to do a series of maybe 5 or 6 box breathing, where box breathing is I'm doing it all through my nose. I'm breathing in for 4 seconds. I'm holding it for 4 seconds. I'm exhaling for 4 seconds. I'm holding it for 4 seconds. And I do that to try to slow myself down. And then I'm tracking my HRV, and I'm hoping that it goes up. A couple of the other things that I'm trying to do are, when I know that I've had a stressful moment or a stressful day, is to do a longer, slower cardio, where maybe it's an hour, or normally I would do 30 minutes. It's because when you're being chased by the bear, right, you would have run away. Well, we don't get to do that. So longer, slower cardio, zone 2, which would be, I can talk to you, but maybe every 10th breath I take a breath. So that slightly higher elevated heart rate, it's not just a jog, or it's not just a walk, but it's not running. It's somewhere in between, or it's a slow row. So something that just helps me get the actual stress hormones out of my body. That's something else that I'm working on. Now, this is not going to be instantaneous. And I also know that I will never get away from the stress in my life. There are going to be bills to pay. There's going to be, for me, there's going to be trauma and dramatics at work. I'm going to go on more CPRs. I'm going to go on more shootings. And I have to realize that is going to affect me. So I am getting a bite guard. I ordered one called Chewy. This is not a sponsored ad, but Chewy, not Chewy. Cheeky. Sorry, Cheeky. It's funny. I had family over for Thanksgiving, and the box came in and it said Cheeky. My brother-in-law grabbed it. He's like, "Hey, it looks like you got some underwear." It's not underwear. It's a bite guard. But I don't want to grind my teeth down to nothing, so I'm going to wear a night guard, or a bite guard. But I'm hoping that these other things will reduce my stress. Stress does kill. Now, stress can make you strong too, right? Deadlifting is stress, and it makes you stronger. And I think learning to manage your stress through sleeping well, eating well, and it really just comes down like I need to be healthier. That will help get rid of stress. But I wanted to give you those tools. I'm sleeping better. Sauna. Now, I can't give you a sauna, but I would encourage you to go out and get one. And overall, just try to manage your stress. Realize that it is happening even without anxiety, even without worry. You can have stress. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please leave me a review. As always, my name is Danny Dumas, and this is the Earn Your Title podcast, and I will talk to you later. Bye.